adolescent girls who've been resettled as refugees here in Chicago. And most recently, we expanded to a program in Austin, Texas as well. So I've been with Girl Forward about 3.5 years. I'm a social worker by trade, but I mostly run programs and girl-facing stuff at Girl Forward. So I'm gonna let some of our girls also introduce themselves as well. So girls, if you can say your name, where you go to high school, your age, and something fun about yourself for the crowd, maybe. Yeah? Ready to start?
Hi, I'm Amina. I am a senior now in high school. I'm originally from Pakistan, and one hobby that I have is reading. I like reading.
Good.
Hello.
I'll hold it for you. You can just put your hands down.
Okay.
Perfect.
My name is Asmita. I'm a junior student in Sullivan High School, and I love shopping.
Awesome. Perfect. That's great.
Yeah.
Do you want me to do the rest?
Yeah.
Hi, I'm Sanj. I've been with Girl Forward for about 1.5 years. I taught the summer program this year.
Hi, my name is Miriam, and I am 16 years old. I go to Lincoln Park, and I'm sophomore, and I love K-pop.
Hi, my name is Said Anjum Fatima, and I go to Sen High School. I'm 15 years old, and I love reading.
And girls, I'm gonna have you just shift and maybe stand over there so everyone can see our PowerPoint, and we'll call you up when it's your turn for your next segment. So just to go over sort of our mission, as I said, Girl Forward is really focused on empowering adolescent girls who've been resettled as refugees here in Chicago through mentorship, educational programs, and social support. We do this because we know when we empower girls, we empower communities. And when a girl is empowered, she can care for herself, her family, and give back to her community in some way. We serve girls from all over the world, literally all over the world, about 30 different places that they call home. And that could be a country that they were born in, a country of their nationality, a country they were displaced from, or even a space that they maybe spent a very short time in but still feels like home to them. So we're serving primarily girls coming from East Africa, the Great Lakes Crisis region, West Africa, the Middle East, and Southeast Asia. So today we have a couple countries represented, and we'll have the girls introduce their homes to you as they share their narratives in a little bit. But I'm gonna pass the mic over to Sanj, who's gonna tell you a little bit more about our programs and the nuts and bolts about what we do at Girl Forward.
One of the biggest things that we do is we have a safe spaces program at Girl Forward. It's designed for girls to connect with other girls, access resources they need, and express and explore their identities. Our Safe Spaces program creates spaces in schools, in businesses throughout the neighborhood, and most importantly at our after-school center. That's our biggest safe space. It's a place where girls can get homework help, get college counseling, and just hang out with people who they love. I'm going to ask Miriam, can you tell us a little bit about how our Safe Space program has given you a space to explore your identity?
I go to Lincoln Park High School, and I have so when I go to Girl Forward, I feel more like home. I feel connected with these beautiful young ladies, and I can talk about my problems, like like English is hard, and we will talk about ongoing conversation, and it's hard for me to talk about my problems and hardship that I face at my school, since they never went through the same thing as me. And when I talk about my problems at Girl Forward, I feel like they are part of my identities, and I can be myself.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you, Miriam.
Let's give Miriam a round of applause.
Woo! Awesome. One of the other things we do is our mentoring program, and our mentoring program pairs adult women in Chicago with Girl Forward girls. They meet with girls 2 hours a week in their homes and focus on our 4 W's: wisdom, wallet, wellness, and world. And they do activities throughout the city focusing on those tenets. I'm going to ask Asmita and Amina about our mentoring program. Amina, you have a great story about the first time you shared food from your home country with your mentor. Could you tell us that story?
Yeah. So the first time I met with my mentor, I wanted to connect with food. So I gave her samosas, which is which is just potatoes and just like a pastry wrap. And I presented her different sauces. What happened was she tried the red sauce, thinking it was sriracha, but it turned out chili sauce, which is really, really, really hot. And it was awkward for me because she started crying, and I don't know what to do. So I gave her water, cold water. I gave her juice. I gave her ice cream. Nothing happened. So then it was an awkward first meeting, but it's actually really memorable. It taught me that I come from a different identity, even though we respect and know each other, and the world is filled with different people.
Awesome. Thank you.
Let's give Amina a round of applause.
Asmitha, you have had 2 different mentors in our program. Can you tell me about a way that you have explored your identity with your first mentor, Akshita, and your second mentor, Ali?
Yeah,
You can come here.
Why don't you go?
My first mentor, Aksira, she was from India, and my first mentor, she was Aksira. She was from India, and my parents, like our home, we understand Hindi, so it was kind of like easy to communicate with her. And then it felt like she was kind of part, like our family member. It feels like she was our like my sister, like that. And my second mentor, sis Ellie, she like for the when we met second time, I taught her like about our culture, and then like dresses, songs. Yeah, I'm getting to teach her.
Yeah, the teacher, because Allie's from the United States,
United
right? So
States.
it's a different experience that you're getting to teach her about your culture. That's really cool.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing that.
Thanks. Let's give Asmita a round of applause.
Anjum, can you go over here? Last but not least, our summer program. Camp Girl Forward is actually my favorite program that we have. Our summer program focuses on literacy while engaging social justice and exploring our identity. It's all high school students, and we meet 4 times a week, and we explore the city. Anjum was a part of our summer program this year. Anjum, how were you able to explore your identity during Camp Girl Forward this year?
I was able to explore my identity because there were many different people from many different religions, from many different countries. So it made me feel like I'm also from different countries, so I can also express my views, and I can also present who am I. So I felt safe and comfortable to share and to express my views.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Anjum.
Thank you, Anjum. All right, that was awesome. So one of the biggest things we do during Camp Girl Forward is we have a lot of time for creative writing to explore and share our identity with the people around us. So our students have prepared some really beautiful pieces for you all, and they're going to share that with you now. And Asmitha is going to start, actually, so could you?
You can stand wherever you want, hon. And Sandra's just going to hold the mic in front of you, so don't feel nervous. Don't feel like you have to speak into it. Just
Okay.
read your story like you always do.
Okay. Again.
And actually, Asmita, can you introduce yourself
Yeah.
and maybe share your name again so everyone can hear it, where you're from originally, and when you came to the United States?
Yeah, sure.
Thank you.
My name is Asmita. My parents are from Bhutan, but I was born in Nepal, and I came here in 2012. So I will share my story. I always wondered how my parents ended up in a country named Nepal, where we lived in a refugee camp. I was also curious about why people called us witness when we live in the same country as they did. One day, I asked my parents why they had to leave their country. They regretfully said that when we were in Bhutan, we had our own homeland, gardens, farms, and a land with different kinds of trees, like banana trees, coconut trees. We were living happily, but one day, some people from the government came to our village, and they announced that we had to leave our country. Otherwise, they would kill us. They would often come to our village and beat our brothers. In the 1990s, many witnesses were deported to eastern Nepal. Among them was my family. But some people did not leave Bhutan. They remained there and lived through the war. My father was one of four brothers. 2 fled and 2 remained in Bhutan. I asked my dad, why did your 2 other brothers not come to Nepal with you? Why did only you and your older brother flee to Nepal? My dad told me when my grandma died when he was 3 years old, and my grandpa died when he was 8 years old. He and his brothers were alone, so he lived with his brother. His brother's family was so scared and they didn't want their children to get hurt, so they left for their own good and for the good of their children. So and the other two brothers were not married, so they fought and stayed there. Sometimes I feel sad. I feel sad for my family having to leave everything behind and start over. They mean my family. Coming here, we had to start all over again. Thank you.
All right, Anjum. Could you tell us where you're from?
Yeah.
A little bit about yourself.
Hi, my name is Said Anjum Fatima, and I'm from India. I came to United States in June this year.
Do you want to stand here?
I'm gonna read my poem, I Am From. I'm from colorful clothes, from cinnamon and garlic. I'm from the land of mud which smells like home, the land which is cultured. The home with sounds of families, the sounds of kids, which makes me feel better. I'm from the banyan tree and from the jasmine. I am from Ramazan and Eid, from grandparents and my parents. I'm from love and care and from help. I'm from you are late to school and get up. From twinkle twinkle little star, how I wonder what you are. I'm from Hyderabad, from Islam and from India. From butter chicken and biryani, from my 20 small cousins who all live in one home, who shout and play and help people. They make everyone smile in my home, especially the person who is sad. I'm from copper, silver, gold ring that makes your skin pure on my grandmother's finger. I'm from these moments, from colorful clothes, Ramzan, cinnamon, garlic, the land of mud which smells like home.
All right, Miriam's going to share a poem.
My name is Miriam. I am from Myanmar, but I grew up in Malaysia, and I came to America in 2012. And okay. I am from rice, from plantation, and from the sweat that drips. I'm from the bloodshed and hunger and the horror of the war. I am from the gongura, the mango tree, whose long gone limbs I remember as if they were my own. I am from strength and love, from Zoe and my family. I am from discipline and morals, and from dignity and tradition. I am from the limited educations, shelter from the truth hidden about the outside world. I am from singing if you're happy and you know, clap your hand to soothe my pain. I'm from Kadoboy. I'm from Chin State in Myanmar. And I am Zoe. I am from affording only vegetable and rice porridge that best to kill my hunger. I am from my parents who sacrificed their body and souls for the children of their love. Their individual dreams were hidden from reality, unable to be chased. I am from the shabby clothes they wear in sacrifice for me, and from their hearts that glow with the light of God that everyone admires. Their faith in God and their strong hearts led them to find a path for me. Now, I am from a new home. Now, I am from openly expressing my thoughts and the wildness of my mind. Now, I am from my dreams becoming a reality. And now, I am very lucky to be here in America of life, liberty, and prosperity. Thank you.
Thank you, Miriam. All right, Amina and Ron. You ready?
Yeah. Hi, I'm Amina. I am originally from Pakistan, but I grew up in the Netherlands. I came to the United States in 2010, and today I'm performing a poem. I'm from a house down the street that hugs jasmine trees, whose scent presents a scene of home with every breeze. I'm from the house down the canal streets, painted purely by the palette that Van Gogh himself kept as a treat. I'm from the bicycles that pulse through the city like a heartbeat. From the Dutch pancakes resembling powdered icing tracing sheets. From the windmills that light up the streets that hum a breeze. I'm from a city where pigeons dance ever so freely. From a city where my people live within the pockets of the mountains, where the sun greets them good morning, where the clouds go beneath their yards skimming over the city. I'm from a nation where a woman has a say in the government, where my feminism originates. It displaces, it degraces, dismantles old ideals. I'm from a city where there are die-hard baseball fans that cheer with glee. This city, which I call home, is filled with this breeze. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Amina.
Another big, maybe let's do snaps this time. Really get the poetry feeling in here for the girls who shared. Thank you. Thank you, girls, for sharing your stories. I know sometimes that can be intimidating, right? I am going to ask you to stay up here, maybe come over here, and we're going to take some questions. So we really quickly overviewed our programs for you, but we would love to take questions for the girls about the process of writing their poetry, the process of thinking about the stories that they were going to tell today, or just in general about what we do at Girl Forward. So yeah, what questions do you all have about us? Yeah, go ahead, right here. How did you guys feel writing your poems? So some of the girls wrote their poems as a part of our partnership with 826 Chicago. It's a writing center in Wicker Park. So some of the girls, specifically Asmita and Anjum, wrote their stories this summer in partnership with 826 during a camp field trip. Miriam and Amina wrote their poems on their own. Miriam spent about 20 minutes on it last Thursday, actually, which is incredibly impressive. So Asmita and Anjum, maybe you want to take this question. Do you want to tell them about what it was like going to 826 and writing your poems?
Go ahead.
Yeah. I'll hold it. You can just talk.
It was fun actually when they just gave some new ideas how to write a poem. So we thought of our country, how is it, how we live there, how the people were there. So we just got an idea about it and we wrote about it. That's it.
What about you, Asmita? What was it like writing your poem with 826 this summer?
I was pretty excited because it was new experience to me, and I didn't know much about my parents, like how they left their country, so they gave me a chance to know about them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So did you, when you were writing your story, I know this is a pretty hard story for you to write, so I thank you again for sharing it with the room today. So it prompted a conversation that you really hadn't gotten to have with your parents yet. That can be really powerful. Do you feel like that you just like learned so much more about who you are through that process? Yeah? Cool. Thank you. Amina, you are kind of a seasoned poet, right? Maybe a little. Do you want to talk about sort of your process for writing?
Yeah, in high school, I'm actually part of the slam poetry team, and I felt when I got this opportunity, a lot of question was about what should I write about, because I can talk so much about the different experiences I've had through my life. But when I was writing this, I thought about my audience and what would make them picture what I felt through. For example, my example of the Dutch pancakes and how these pancakes are so thin, just like crepes, but like they're considered pancakes. If you talk to a Dutch person about these pancakes and you say they're crepes, they will haunt you. I will tell you, they will haunt you. But I also want to talk about the breeze that I talk about in my poem. For every country that I talk about, there is always this breeze within the end of the line, and I want to like divide that about the different countries that I've gone through and my experiences over there.
Cool. Miriam, do you want to talk about what it was like for you writing the poem?
We, when I wrote about the poem, it just came, like, and naturally I have like a lot of ideas to talk about it, and I just wrote it, and I felt very proud that my parents did so much for me and for my family. They went through a lot of hardship than I ever imagined, and they're very strong, and I am so proud of
Yeah.
that.
So it's kind of what inspired you,
Yes.
sort of looking at your parents is what sounds like inspired you to work on your poem. Cool. Thank you all for sharing. What other questions do we have? Yeah, back there. Cool. Who wants to start? How do you guys remember how you found out about Girl Forward? Does anyone remember? Do you want to
Yeah,
share?
I was actually part of Indo-American Center, which is nearby in Chicago, and over there I was going to their summer camp, but unfortunately I graduated, and my mother didn't want me at home just being there and watching TV, especially a lot of songs and stuff like that. But she wanted me to do something, and I got to know about Girl Forward through Indo-American, and the first time I went there was with their summer program.
Cool. Thanks. Anybody else? Do you remember how you found out?
I was part of Madonna Mission, and Miss Lynn, who is a founder of Madonna Mission, she told me that since I was 8th grade, and she told me that, do you want to join Girl Forward, which is for a high school student, and I was like, yes, sure. And then she drove us to Girl Forward, and I met Ashley, and it was great.
The rest is history.
Yeah, the rest is history.
Asmita, do you remember? You were at school, right?
Yeah, I think I remember. I got to know Girl Forward like it was first year, like when I got here, 2012. Ashley, and then like I think you and some
Yeah, a
came to
couple
our
interns.
elementary school and then taught us. And then after I was in 7th grade, and then after elementary school, and I joined. Yeah.
And Anjum, you don't remember. I remember for you if you want to know. Yeah, Sanj came to your house. Anjum, you were a referral from another agency too. So partnership is obviously a big theme in how the girls find us at Girl Forward. We partner formally with the refugee resettlement agencies in the city and also other community orgs to get lists of girls for our summer program specifically. But these girls are the best ambassadors we have for Girl Forward. Many of them have brought their friends into the fold. So that's becoming an increasing way that girls find out about our programs, is just being in the community, having friends that go to school with each other. Some of you girls go to schools where maybe you're the only Girl Forward girl in your program, but like Asmita, for example, there are tons of Girl Forward girls right at Sullivan and for you guys. So that's something that's growing for us, is how girls find us. I wish I could say there was a typical day at Girl Forward. Miriam might be able to speak to how crazy my job looks because she spends about as much time at Girl Forward as I do. No. My day is really focused on the administration of the office. So I was the first hire at Girl Forward. I was the first staff member outside of our founder. So my job pretty much every month that I've been in it has looked a little different and has grown and changed. But I spend a lot of time advocating in the schools for girls, helping girls navigate that system, building partnerships with other community organizations, and then helping our mentors problem solve. So we have 50 girls in the mentoring program and 50 mentors, and all the girls here today have mentors in the program as well. So I help mentors think about problem solving and help them come up with things to do with their mentees. So it could be anything from my mentee really needs help in her chemistry class to I really want to explore a new neighborhood with my mentee. Can you help me think about the logistics of how to get there? And then Sanj, you've kind of had quite a few different hats at Girl Forward too. I don't know if you want to briefly mention.
So I started as a teaching intern, so I was, during the summer program, I assisted in the classroom and learned a lot in that space. Then I did like a research project to develop some resources for our mentors. Then I just worked under the director of education, and then I was the teaching fellow this summer, and I taught Camp Girl Forward. So that is a crazy fun summer. We have literature circles every morning where each girl has like a group at a similar level, like with a book and an intern, and they kind of go through a book during the summer, and they have discussions. Then in the afternoons, we do projects that kind of explore different aspects of who we are and also develop our presenting skills and language skills. And then on Fridays, we have awesome field trips where we go throughout the city and have a lot of fun, but also explore and learn from some businesses, from 826 Chicago, from museums, from parks. We play soccer. We do all of the things. So there's no typical day at Girl Forward.
And I do want to just shout out Maya really quick in the front right here. She's one of our interns right now, an education intern. Another part of the team represented. I think we might have time for one more question. Yeah.
I'll be interested in knowing who is getting ready to be the next president of America. Because why not? Because we can change rules. We can change the birthing rule too, and age limit too. Because we vote, we decide what to do.
Right.
So anybody interested in becoming next president? We still have
Yeah.
more.
What about you guys? I've actually heard Miriam. I've heard Miriam start her campaign speech already today in the car. She said, "What do you have to do to become the president? Do you have to like make commercials, right?" And then you looked at me and you said, you went, "I'm Miriam."
I, Miriam, approve this message.
Pretty funny timing, but yeah. Anybody else dreams of someday becoming president somewhere? Or maybe just a woman leader of anything?
I'll go with the women leader. I don't see myself aging within 4 years
Right.
drastically. Yeah.
Well, that's a good segue though to think about what you do want to do when you grow up. What do you want to be when you get older? Not to pressure the senior on a panel.
I want to pursue a biomedical engineering degree in efforts to empower doctors throughout the world, and also empower them to connect with their patients and see what is missing and how to make it more efficient.
Cool. That's great. Yeah, that's awesome. Anybody else want to share any thoughts they have for when they grow up? Miriam? Yeah?
I thought about my future a lot.
A little bit louder.
And I want to be a doctor, actually, especially surgeon. And I just like want to be woman power, and show it through, improve it by becoming a doctor.
Yeah, cool. Anja, Masmita, do you want to share? Yeah.
I am thinking, I think I want to be a social worker like you guys, who helps girls.
Anjum, do you have any ideas? Things you want to do?
I'm thinking of like to make a new camp or something for poor people, or to make them like to give them some food and all, so that they can feel comfortable and all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. So helping people is kind of a theme for you all, right? Yeah. Cool. We have 2 minutes left. Yeah.
I have a question for girls. Like, do you ever think to go back to their home countries in the future into something? Because I have similar experience as you did. When war started in Afghanistan, we were refugees in Russia, and I returned with really sensitive age. I was really when went back to Afghanistan, and it was really difficult for me to reconnect with my roots and my home country. So I was thinking maybe in the future you think to go back home, although you just found a new home here, but still.
Yeah. So the question is, do you ever think about maybe going back home? Anyone want to start?
Not really like going back home, but do something for people in Europe.
So going back home, or maybe doing programming or working and doing things to help empower the place that you're from.
Oh, okay. I am always inspired by Khan Academy because I feel like Mr. Khan actually made a platform for all the kids out there who have access to the internet and access to education through that. And I think that because I want to do biomedical engineering, I want to make more efficient, less expensive medical tools for doctors to use, and more energy efficient too. And I think that if I work hard enough, if I try my best, I think I can try to make that possible for my country.
Anybody else want to share things? Miriam?
One of my dreams is to go back my home and help my my country. So I want to open like a school, and I want to bring like a lot of books, because when I live in Myanmar for a while, I mean like up to, and when I live in Myanmar, my thought were like liberals or like I don't know that there is outside world exist, and I thought that there only in Myanmar countries exist. So I want to bring books and educate them, and I want them to be independent on who they are.
I know you reflect a lot about your educational experience when you were still in Myanmar and in Malaysia. Do you feel like that influences that your desire to want to go back and help people access education? What was your sort of education experience when you were at home?
At home, I never go to school, which is a sad thing, and I want to open school for all my like my relative and all the people in Myanmar country, so that they can get education.
Okay, thank you. All right, girls, we're out of time, but if you have one quick thing you want to say, I think they'll allow one more thing.
I haven't thought about it.
That's cool. That's okay then. Thank you all so much for being here and listening to our stories. And thank you, girls, for sharing. This was great. Thank you. We do have some brochures and my business cards over here and a couple of books of poetry that we've written at Girl Forward before. The books can't be taken, but you can browse them in the next few minutes between or after the panels are all done today. So thank you. Yeah, it's just right over there, kind of on the bottom of.
Thank you, girls. Thank you both
For
for sharing. There will be some time at the end of the session for further questions and discussion. But we turn now to Sana Patel, who will present The Children Ask, Who Am I? Examining the construction of Muslim identity among young South Asians in Toronto. So we welcome Sana.
Can I not use this? Is that okay? Is it okay if I don't use the mic?
Oh, it's for the video.
Oh, okay, sure. Do I have to press anything, or I don't have to press anything, or fine. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for being here today, and I'd like to thank the conference organizers for putting together such a great conference, such a great list of speakers, and so much talent here. I'm very honored to be here, and I would like to present my master's thesis research that I did at Carleton University in Ottawa, Canada. But before I do begin, I would like to tell you a little about myself so you can see what inspired me and why this research is so important to me. So both of my parents, their families, they lived in Saudi Arabia. They got married there. They had us kids. I have an older brother and a younger sister. And although we lived in Saudi Arabia for such a long time, my dad is actually Gujarati Indian, which is why my last name is Patel. And my mom is Urdu-speaking Pakistani. And so one of the reasons we left Canada was because as non-Arabs, we were not allowed to go to public school. So my siblings and I, we went to private school. And another disadvantage of living there, well, sometimes it was great, it wasn't that bad, but one of the disadvantages was education. So when it came to colleges and university, it was nearly impossible for us to get an education there. So my parents decided to immigrate to Canada. I moved to Canada when I was 7 or 8 years old, so 15, 16 years ago. And it was such a different environment for me. From living in Saudi Arabia, where I wasn't allowed to go out without my dad, I noticed a lot of different things that my mom didn't have to wait for my dad to get home. She can go to the mall on her own. My mom and I, we can go wherever we want. And also meeting people from different religions and different cultures. Where I lived in Saudi Arabia and Jeddah, there were mostly Arabs or just Indian Pakistani people. But in Toronto, where I live, different ethnicities, different cultures, all this different type of food. It was great. But the thing is, I met a lot of people who were very proud to be Canadian, or they're very proud to be whatever their family background was. So I have Bengali friends who are very proud to be Bengali. Bengali food, Bengali clothes, anything, you name it. So all these years in Canada, before I started my research, I would always ask myself, where do I belong? Do I belong with the Gujarati people? I mean, we do speak Gujarati at home, but it's not perfect. It's mixed with Urdu, Arabic, and English. So we don't really belong in the Gujarati community. Our food is not really Gujarati. What about Pakistani? Well, my Urdu is not that great. Well, we did have to learn 4 languages growing up, so it was kind of tough. And Arab, well, I can't call myself Arab. I mean, we did leave Saudi Arabia because we're not Arab. So who am I? When people look at me, I know that they can tell I'm Muslim because of my hijab, and that's great. I would like that to be a part of my identity. But can I be modern and Muslim at the same time? Is that even possible? Can I wear pants and can I wear my hijab? Is it okay if my pants are tight? So all these questions I had, and it inspired me to do my research, and it's very important to me. So actually, let me tell you why I picked that title for my paper. I spoke to a Muslim chaplain at the University of Toronto, and he was telling me about the students that visit him on a daily basis. He would get a lot of immigrant students or first and second generation Canadians, and these young adults, they would always be confused about who they are. Are they going to stick to their Pakistani culture? Are they going to be really proud to say they're Canadian? What is it? Or who are they? So who am I? They would constantly ask themselves that. So I thought it would be great for a title. So the research questions that I had is how do South Asian Muslims from immigrant backgrounds negotiate their multiple identities? And the 3 sub-questions that I have are, how are Muslim identities in the GTA complicated by pronounced diversity of ethnicity? And how do young South Asians maintain their religious identities? Does a third space exist for young South Asians in the GTA? The GTA refers to the Greater Toronto Area, and it includes cities such as Mississauga and Brampton. And if so, what is it? And where is it? Is it like a literal space or not? What does having a Muslim Canadian identity mean to those who come from immigrant families? I conducted one-on-one semi-structured qualitative interviews in which the participants told me about their experiences as Muslims in the GTA. Many of them explained having multiple identities and having to negotiate them in certain circumstances and situations. Using Homi Bhabha's theory of hybrid identity, I explained how young South Asians in the GTA who self-identify as Muslims negotiate the multiplicities of their identity, and in an environment where they're sometimes forced to be less immigrant or be more Canadian. It's widely known that Canada is very proud of its multiculturalism and religious pluralism, and it's true, but not to ignore those social political problems that we do have in the country. But one of the great things about Canada is there's so many different cultures. There are people from so many different countries, religions, and also the Muslim diaspora in North America. It consists of a large number of ethnically, culturally, nationally, and religiously diverse Muslims. It also includes Muslim converts like African Americans, Arabs, South Asians, and all of them have their different histories. So when we put together one group of Muslims and we identify them with one single identity, that's problematic. And it also ignores the differences within the Muslim communities. So the GTA is the most populated region in Ontario. Therefore, it is no surprise that the GTA is the most culturally diverse and religiously plural region in Canada. Statistics Canada estimates Canada's immigrant population to be 6,775,000 in 2011, out of which the majority of people immigrated from Asia and Middle East. Since the Muslim diaspora in Canada is not only large, but also ethno-culturally diverse, I found it important to do my study in Toronto. So this pie chart here, it shows the ethnic origins of visible minorities in Ontario. Actually, I just learned a few weeks ago that the term visible minorities is not a universal term, it's a Canadian term. And Statistics Canada defines visible minority as persons who are non-Caucasian in race or non-white in color and who do not report being Aboriginal. Combine the 3 largest visible minority groups in 2011, which are South Asian, Chinese, and Blacks, they account for nearly 2/3 of visible minorities in Ontario. So I used Bhabha's theory of hybridity and third space, and relating this theory to my research to how identities are constructed, although it's hard to read his theory because he's a post-colonial thinker, I translate his theory as where the clash of the colonizer and the colonized, hence a person creates a different identity, which is a new culture identity, which is actually a clash of more than one identities. So I use his concepts to explain hybridity, where the concepts of hybridity come from, and third space to explain the experience of South Asians in Toronto. So there were 7 participants in my study, and they all fell under this category. They were South Asian. They self-identified as Muslim. They were between the ages of 18 and 24. They were currently attending university or college in the GTA, or they recently graduated. And there were 4 females and 3 males, and 2 Muslim chaplains were also interviewed. One of the significant factors identified in the study was that educational institutions played a very important role in forming and shaping identities of these participants. University is a space where people are transitioning from high school to college. They have the opportunity to discover themselves, to find out who they are. They get to interact with people of different cultures, different races. And this was the case for most of the participants in the research. The young participants in the study explained that it was their journey in the undergraduate education that inspired them or encouraged their identity. And they were more curious to learn about where they were from. What about Islam? Where do they fit in? And interestingly enough, these schools, they're all secular schools. So that they do not attribute any or force or teach any religious values or beliefs. And it was actually these schools that inspired these participants to be maybe more or less Muslim, but they got the chance to learn more about their religion. So the participants, I'm going to refer to them as P1, P2, P3 to keep their anonymity, and I'll only be talking about the female participants. And actually, that's my sister in the middle. And sometimes we get called twins, but we're really not. So I didn't put a picture of myself up there. But so for P4, it was her experience at Carleton University in Ottawa and at Ryerson University in Toronto that motivated her to question her association of culture and religion. So I'm going to quote here. She says, "After going to university at Carleton and Ryerson, I realized that certain beliefs that are cultural are associated as being part of religion. For example, hijab styles. In Mississauga, people were telling me that the turban scarf style is not considered a hijab, and that wearing it the traditional way, where the face is covered, that's the way women should wear it in Islam. But going to university, I was exposed to numerous different Muslims who wear the hijab differently. I saw girls wearing it Turkish style, turban style, Persian, and many different styles. And this also reminded me, one time my friend's mother told me that I couldn't wear jeans because they were un-Islamic, that instead I should be wearing salwar kameez. And according to some perspectives, sometimes cultural values and practices are so intertwined with religion that it's difficult to deconstruct these. But the participants in the study, that is what they're trying to do. So for P4's friend's mom, who suggested that maybe she shouldn't be wearing jeans, she should be wearing salwar kameez, she didn't comprehend this well. She didn't understand. She had been exposed to many different styles of dress from other Muslims from other cultures, and she questioned the idea of how can salwar kameez be Islamic. Salwar kameez is, if you don't know, I'm sure you do, but I'm sure some girls are wearing it tonight. So it allowed her perspective to change when she encountered other Muslim women at university, and the influence of culture and on religion is very clear here. She also says, "I believe almost anything that is not written in the Quran or Hadith directly, it leaves it up to the individual to interpret on their own. Majority of the choices you make in regards to religion are mainly influenced by culture and how you're influenced. My culture is a mix of being Canadian and Western beliefs incorporated with ethnic beliefs. Being only 19 years old, she has taken the liberty to allow herself to interpret matters or rulings that are not mentioned in the Quran because she thinks that she can interpret it on her own and that there's so much culture in it that she shouldn't be going to maybe a mosque because culture is already associated there. Because there's so many mosques, is she going to go to a Pakistani mosque? Is she going to go to an Indian mosque? If she does go to an Indian mosque, is she going to go to a Sufi mosque, a Sunni mosque? So all these different cultures they're just tied within religion. She also illustrates the process of making sense of potential conflicts between religious beliefs and living in a Canadian society. She used terms such as Western-style clothes, modest, and assimilating. The distinction between clothing fashions in a Western society like Canada or even the States here and dressing according to Muslim values is important. She describes dressing modestly as covering her body, and she also notes the importance of clothing as a part of her process of assimilation into Canadian society. Because multiculturalism and religious pluralism are important features of a Canadian society, instead of integrating herself with the Canadian society, she takes aspects from the Canadian culture and aspects from her religious and cultural background, and she forms her own identity. In other words, she forms a hybrid identity. The term modest can have multiple meanings. It solely depends on the social context it's being used in. For most Muslims, however, the term comes from al-hishma, which actually comes from the Arabic term hishm, which means to anger or to cause embarrassment. And for many Muslims, it acts as a virtue by maintaining their moderation, humility, and respect. Although the term usually applies to both men and women, it is often used to refer particularly to the way that Muslim women are to dress when they're in public. I just thought putting the picture up, both of these were very interesting. I believe they're both from Qatar, so they're having a public campaign where they're telling for foreigners not to dress in those manners, to show no skin at all, but actually dress like them. So I thought that was pretty interesting, and I wanted to put that up there. Another commonality among the participants is that they described their ethnic and cultural identity as flexible. P2 expressed her dissatisfaction with aspects of life that she associates with culture. She uses the norms in Pakistan to compare to the norms in Canada. So I quote here, she says, "So between Pakistani Muslims and Canadian Muslims, for me, the differentiating factor is culture. For instance, going out. Stepping out in public without a man, that for me as a Canadian Muslim is acceptable. But as a Pakistani Muslim, if you're back home, this would be frowned upon. It would be restricted, and there would be consequences." And she's right. Examples like these include patriarchal values and beliefs, and they were quite often brought up by female participants. But the male participants, they just wanted to talk about food when it came to culture. So the Canadian culture, poutine, fries, cheese, and gravy. And the Gujarati participants, they talked about their Gujarati food and the Pakistani food. So I guess to my participants in the study, when it came to culture, they really just cared about food and not the other parts. So because there were 4 participants in the study, and 3 out of the 4 wore the hijab. For P4, the reason for wearing it was because it gave her the agency to mark her identity with the symbol of the hijab. The same went for P3. P4 explained that although wearing the headscarf was her choice, and even though she grew up in such a community where wearing the headscarf was a norm, she considered the hijab as a part of her individual identity. To preserve their Muslim identity, P2, P3, and P4, they all wore the hijab. Although they have different reasons for choosing to wear it, preservation of their Muslimness is a common thing that they all share, and it's an expression of their collective identity as Muslim women. The research findings indicated that there is a significant difference between hybrid and hyphenated identities. Hybrid identities are constructed in situations where individuals have to negotiate their multiple identities and result in creating a single hybrid identity. This can include more than one gender, ethnicity, religion, nationality, and class. The participants in the survey constructed their hybrid identities by negotiating their gender, culture, ethnic, and national and religious identities. All of the young adults identified themselves as Muslim Canadian or Canadian Muslim. However, in most cases, these were their hybrid identities instead of hyphenated. Hyphenated identities are where individuals may constantly switch aspects of one of their identities with the other. So I did have some people tell me if they're out with their friends, they're going to put out their Canadian identity. It's okay to go to a bar as long as they don't drink. But if they're at home, they can't even speak of alcohol, nowhere near alcohol. So there were 6 main findings in the research project. The differentiation between hybrid and hyphenated identities, the formation of hybrid identities, and third space, the crucial value of religious symbols in the construction of Muslim identity, the influence of social environment found in educational institutions in Toronto, the integral role that culture and ethnicity played throughout family influence, and the last finding was that there's a trend of religious inquiry through the use of the internet. So instead of the common method where they would go, or where the young adults would go to an elder in the community and ask them a religious question, or go to the mosque, they would just go on YouTube or Google, or just look up one of the imams that you can say they have a celebrity status because they keep up with Snapchat, incorporating The Walking Dead with Islamic sermons. So they're pretty up to date, but that's a new trend, and I would really like to research that. Hopefully when I pursue PhD sometime, I can look into that. And the Muslim Canadian ideas about identity are constantly changing. It is different than what it meant a decade ago, and it will probably be different than what it is today. Therefore, more research on this needs to be continued. And that's all. Any questions? Yes.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
I'm very delighted as possible. Some people about this identity, sometimes getting back to the home country, people transform the way identity is constructed in that particular country. For example,
Right.
in Saudi Arabia, in the family, in terms of family values, practices,
Mhm.
society, and
Yeah.
right? So, what do you think can happen or has happened on the Muslim communities coming from Saudi Arabia,
Yeah.
Pakistan, or Afghanistan, or some other countries getting back to their own countries, homes, and then transforming identities in some different ways? And what does that mean to the kind of original
I think one of the an example that I can use is Saudi Arabia. So when I lived there, women, they weren't even allowed to show a little bit of hair in their hijab. If their bangs were out, the morality police would be on the streets and they would take them to jail, fine them, whatever it was. But you see, because the royal family is so big and there's so many princes there, they go out into the Western countries, they come to North America, and then they learn either through education, through living experience, and when they go back, they try to change things. The king that we have now in Saudi Arabia, there's talk of women driving. It might even happen. And also, there's no morality police there anymore. So now women, if they go out, they have to have their abaya on, the black coat, but they don't have to have it all the way buttoned up. If they show their bangs through hijab, it's okay. They're not going to get in trouble. So I think policies, identities, they can be transformed. It is definitely possible to bring them from other experiences as the prince do in Saudi Arabia. So that's just one example, but it definitely happens. Yeah. Any other questions? Yes. Thank you. Yeah. Well, so out of my female participants, there were 4, and 3 wore the hijab, and 1 of them didn't. And all 4 of them had the choice. It was their choice whether to wear it or not to wear it. And one of the girls, she's actually the only female in her family to wear the hijab. And her parents, her mom didn't want her to. They had problems in their family because of it. But she stuck through it. So she really wanted to identify with her Muslim identity. And the young lady who didn't choose to wear the hijab, she also said she doesn't care about her cultural clothes, because it is her parents' culture, it's not hers. She grew up in Saudi Arabia. She grew up in Canada. She came to Canada when she was little. So her culture, her identity is Canadian. So she didn't really stick or talk much about her Pakistani culture because that's her parents' culture. She believes it's not really her responsibility to maybe teach her kids about it. She didn't have the chance to see what her parents did or live where her parents lived. So her identity is Canadian. She's going to stick with that. So, yeah. Yes.
First off, just thank you for doing this research. I really appreciate it. Secondly, did any of the participants touch on this idea of authenticity in that space between hyphenated and hyphenated identities and what that looks like and how that plays a factor?
I did have a few participants. I think two who I guess they didn't really know their identity or who they would identify with. So they said it was fine for them to have a long hyphenated identity. Canadian, Muslim, Pakistani, girl, you know, and then they just kept adding on if they needed to. So that would be a hyphenated identity. But most of them actually had a hybrid identity. Some would call themselves Canadian Muslim, but they would stick with their culture also. They just wouldn't identify with it. They would think it's not really important for them to tell people that they are Pakistani, but that they are Canadian and that they are Muslim. And that would be a hybrid identity. Yeah. Any other questions? Yeah. Okay.
You mentioned about men concentrating on food but not women. Could you explain
Well, I had an entire list of interview questions, and one of the questions was where I would ask the participants to tell me about their culture, what they like about their culture, what they don't like, if they follow any of the culture ideas or practices. And when I spoke to the women, you know, they talked about the hijab, they talked about dressing, but when it came to the men, they just wanted to talk about food. So if I was talking to an Indian guy, he was telling me, oh, Indian food is great. Yeah, we're Indian. We speak Gujarati at home. We speak Hindi at home. But did you know butter chicken is amazing? So I just had to put that up there. And I'm not sure why. Maybe because of the patriarchal structure and how their family is. Maybe they don't really put much emphasis on, I don't know, culture. But I guess it was also dependent on the individual cases. So, yeah, that's what happened. Yes.
So did you find that the women in your studies had some negative things to say about their culture and the men didn't?
I'm not sure about negative, but they did say, for example, when I talked about the young lady who gave the example of stepping out with a man, it would be okay as a Canadian woman to do so, but not as a Pakistani woman if she were back home. So they didn't really talk about negative things, but the positive things they got from being Canadian, moving to Canada, and some of them were really glad, and yeah, that's it.
Last question, so we do have other panelists.
Okay. Yeah.
So, thank you for your research. I found it really interesting as a Jewish person because if I were to make this a study about my own community, I would have had to change that few slides. I mean, it's so similar. Even to the point of the hijabi, who's the only one in her family, and her family has issues with that.
Right.
It rings so similar. So, I was curious about your opinion about the sign for having anybody, Muslim or non-Muslim, entering the community and having to cover. How you felt about that?
Well, I know when I lived in Saudi Arabia, there were a lot of non-Muslims, but women had to cover there, even if they were not Muslim. And it's because of the rules there. But in Canada, I guess, it's just, I don't know.
I asked because like the act of having someone else outside the community
Right.
cover as a rule, you know, like I've had to do that too for other communities. Like, did you feel that that's maybe like the reverse effect of wanting people to uncover when they don't want to, or something like that, or did you just feel that it's actually respect?
When I was interviewing, I wear the hijab, and when I was asking the women about hijab, I didn't want to influence them. I didn't want them to tell me positive things about the hijab. Or the one participant who didn't wear the hijab, I didn't want to make her feel uncomfortable. So when I was talking to them, I had to put myself as an outsider. So I tried to ask them questions where it's not personal from me, that is truly from an academic perspective, and I think it went well. So, yeah. Okay.
a little bit later. But before I talk about Lucis, the space I oversee, and what that is, and why I want to bring up a panel to talk about women of color experiences, just a little bit about my positionality, right? So I grew up in a Punjabi Sikh immigrant family on the West Coast in Los Angeles, and saw how Desi immigrants and South Asian individuals come together to support each other, not only their children, but themselves in their citizenship process and also their educational process. But alongside of growing in really resilient Desi communities, I also saw a lot of unjust messages be pushed upon children and youth, right? So messages around anti-blackness, homophobia, transphobia, colorism. And it wasn't really until my undergraduate studies, and I would even say, admittedly, my graduate studies, that I really began to understand that a lot of these phobias and isms that we internalize as a South Asian community is really rooted in our history of colonialism, as well as our histories of immigrating to the States, right? So for me, that layer informs my work with South Asian students on campus, as well as my work with women of color on campus. And especially given where we were a year ago in higher education, right? We were seeing kind of similar to the 60s, and I feel we are at the precipice of another wave of student activism and demonstrations taking place on university campuses. And it started really, I would say, with last year's demonstrations at University of Missouri. We saw similar demonstrations take place all over the country. Yale and our very own campus here, Loyola University Chicago, where students of color, specifically our Black students or African American students, were demonstrating for the right of having more curriculum, having more pedagogical tools in the classroom that reflected their lived experience, right? So in light of this, I'm always, as a South Asian student affairs practitioner, always thinking, what does this mean for identity development for our South Asian students? Are they influenced by this? How are they reacting to this? How does this influence their own racial, ethnic identity development, right? So with that comes into play Lucis, the work I do with Lucis. And Lucis stands for Loyola University Chicago Empowering Sisterhood. And we have three pillars, similar to Girl Forward. Most of this is around empowerment, right? So sistership, scholarship, and leadership. And we do a lot of intentional programming. And what I really want to make kind of very clear is that this is an institutionalized space. A lot of the times when we talk about identity development, racial justice work, we always think about the individual layer, right? What is the individual understanding around your own identities and how that influences how you show up with other people. But we often are always, I think, as folks connected to our own race and ethnicity, trying to figure out how can we mobilize communities, how can we mobilize students, especially on university campuses. And as someone who's institutionally paid to work with women of color, I always wonder, why am I not seeing more spaces like this for women of color or for students who are marginalized, minoritized, whether they be undocumented students or LGBTQIA students, right? So it's really special to have a space like Lucis, because a lot of other Jesuit institutions, there's about 28 of them in the US, do not have spaces for women of color. Those are often organically shaped and formed. And much of the programming that we do kind of manifests in monthly programs. We also have a mentorship program, which Shweta is in, and I'm very grateful for you and your support with that, where we pair staff, faculty, women of color with mentees, first-year students, as well as transfer women of color. We do a women of color journal, Kaleidoscope, where we try to really also have that academic and intellectual component to how we show up and share our narratives. We also do a lot of academic support and follow-up, so making sure students don't have any holds on their accounts, all that nitty-gritty stuff to support them and their experience. And why is this important? Because Loyola, like many of our higher ed institutions across the country, is a predominantly white institution, right? So there's a history of a lack of representation of people of color, and then even another layer of your gender, right? Your gender identity and expression. With that, this is just a photo from last year from one of the big kickoffs that we do, and it shows all of kind of the diversity of the women that we get in our spaces. And as, again, a South Asian practitioner working with college-age students, I'm always curious / thinking about the disproportionate number of South Asian women that show up to spaces like Lucis, and the way in which South Asians, if at all, take on solidarity work So it's really important to note that it is a term you have to claim. And again, my work with South Asian students, I'm always thinking, what is the barrier in claiming that word? And where is there's a reluctance or a hesitancy to do so? And as someone who's really inspired by critical frameworks, critical social theory, queer theory, as well as critical race theory, and the works of Gloria Anzaldúa, Bradley Levinson, some of the critical scholars like Paulo Freire, I really believe to find some of the answers to my questions, I have to go to the lived experiences of my students. So this is where my wonderful panel of South Asian women come in. I know we don't have chairs up here, but I'm inviting all of them to come up here and we'll get into our questions around their own experiences on navigating a predominantly white institution as South Asian women of color. So go ahead and come up here and then we're going to this will be active panel exercise. Awesome. So I have some panel questions for them, and then I will open it up to the rest of you at some point to ask them about their lived experiences. And again, thank you for entertaining me by walking and standing for the panel. So just with, if all of you could share your name, of course, your gender pronouns, and I forgot to do this, my gender pronouns are she, her, and hers, and your major and Loyola affiliation, because I know some of you are alums now, so you can go ahead and start whichever direction.
Hi, my name is Jaspreet. I go by also by she, her, and hers. I am a graduate student here at Loyola in Business Department.
Hi, I'm Sandra. My pronouns are she, hers, and hers. And I'm a student here. I'm a senior, and I'm a pre-med student of my major English major.
I'm Malika. My pronouns are also she, her, hers. I'm a junior undergraduate student here, and I'm studying biology.
Hi, I'm Nishinda. My gender pronouns are she, her, hers. I am a Loyola alum. I graduated with a degree in math last year.
I'm Sonia. I am a junior here. My pronouns are she, her, hers, and I'm major, special education.
I'm Armin. I'm a junior also. I'm also special education. We're twins. Not really, but and my pronouns are she, her, and hers.
And I don't know if it's just me because I am battling a kind of a flu. I'm congested, but I know this like air thing is blowing too. So if the panelists could amplify, I really appreciate that. My next question for you all is: as a South Asian woman, how did you get involved in LUCIS? Or actually, let's jump to just the next one. How has LUCIS influenced you as a South Asian woman on Loyola's campus?
I got involved, I think, it was like my first week in Chicago, and I saw on Facebook that the CE was going to Lucid. And I was like, okay, this looks cool. So I jumped on, and how has it influenced me? Actually, Chicago is one of the first spaces that in the U.S.
colonialism versus here through the history of race and racism that we inherit, whether we choose to do something about it or not as South Asians, is very different. You know, so woman of color can be seen as a term of solidarity too, but often it's not seen that way because we're undoing layers of colonialism that we immigrate and come here with, and then are faced to also be a part of the racial justice work here as well. So it's so nuanced. But I appreciate you bringing that up.
Thank you. Sandra, just so you know, the largest consumers of Fair and Lovely are South Indian men.
Oh my god. And then that's just like not only that, like also like in South India, so I'm from Hyderabad, but like I grew up in a Telugu community. And
Yeah, no, that's a different one. That's why there's another category of Fair and Handsome.
Yeah, very handsome. Actually, I just came from India out there like 4 months ago. I was there for an event, and yeah, Fair and Lovely. I saw Fair and Handsome on the commercial. I was just like, first of all, what is his name? Ritin Roshan or whatever? Like, and like first of all,
Shah Rukh Khan endorses.
like he doesn't really need it, but okay. But what I was gonna say, like, it's ingrained in our culture because we have like Telugu, right, where you put like the turmeric powder, the healthy, you rub it on there. It's just so ingrained in culture. They've been practicing this for years, and I was having this conversation with my mother, and she's like, it doesn't make sense because you put turmeric out in the sun, you grow darker. It grows dark, and it just doesn't make sense. It's so ingrained in our culture, just like that tradition alone, in a marriage, you know, all
Trying to
things.
erase the color.
Exactly, like these people just like scrub it on. It's like taking a shower. That's what it means in Telugu. It's like taking a shower with it, scrubbing it.
So we have just a few minutes left, and I just wanted to invite the girls from Girl Forward if they want to come up, as well as the organizers, Sana. If there are any just last questions or thoughts that can be directed at everybody, I think group as a whole, I'm sure that the girls from Girl Forward have also had experiences from a very different perspective of color. And we have just a few minutes left, so we have about 5 more minutes to get out to a close.
We can take 10 to 15. This was the highlight of our conference, and I'm just so glad that you've been here. Thank you to all of you. This is awesome.
First of all, thank you for organizing and being here. It's so vibrant, and I feel like being part of this, belonging. The way the title has been crafted, South Asian Women and Identity Politics, and the question, do we belong? I want one word answer. At what point of South Asian identity you think you really belonged and impressed? And what aspect of that you thought you really didn't belong and you wanted to merge with something, multicultural, plural down here in America? One reply. Whoever, especially those who participated just now. Did I make my question clear? The sense of belonging, sense of unbelonging. India and here. One word.
Like
Yeah.
a sense of belonging and not belonging
Not,
in America.
no. Either way. It gets full now.